Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Douglas Johnson. I am a certified yoga teacher at the advanced 500-hour level. I'm an ordained minister, kirtan artist, musician, amongst other things. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about curiosity, but before I get into that, I would like to thank everyone who makes these talks possible. That is primarily my Patreons on Patreon, or my patrons on Patreon. They make a monthly contribution that allows me to approach this as part of my job. I really don't have a lot of resources and extra time without that, so they really make these talks possible. So I want to thank them. I also want to thank those of you on YouTube that like, subscribe, comment, and share, because that does help spread the word. If you'd like to join that community or make a one-time donation, please check out the links below, and there's information there regarding that. Okay, so this is just a spontaneous talk about something that has really been an important tool in my own practice, my own development, my own path, and that is curiosity. Asking questions, not accepting the answers that others hand down to me, whether that be from society, from religion, from teachers, from different sources. Being curious enough to dig and to ask questions to go below the surface of where things are. So I really can't express how profound this actually is and on how many levels curiosity can operate. In my experience, it can operate on the deepest levels. So we can have an experience and we feel pain, we're suffering, and perhaps it's because someone has broken our heart. On the surface level, it just all makes sense, right? I'm in love with this person. They rejected me. They left. My heart is broken. End of story. That is why I'm suffering. That is the cause and effect relationship. It's so simple, right? It's so easy. But I'll tell you, from a spiritual perspective, nothing is that simple, nothing is that easy. There are so many layers deeper at which we can begin to investigate something like that, like heartbreak and the pain and the suffering that comes with that. But no one can really do this for you. It really is something that you will need to do and to dig into on your own. And all I can really say is it is definitely a worthwhile endeavor in my experience. In fact, maybe the most worthwhile endeavor of any effort you can make is that curiosity to really ask, well, is this true? Now, I do want to be careful here because there is a balance, I think, in all things. And when it comes to our teachers, when it comes to our traditions, when it comes to things like that, there should be a balance of this curiosity, this questioning, you could say a certain level of skepticism, and faith in our tradition, faith in our teachers. So it really is kind of a scientist's approach in that we want to take the information that's given to us. We don't necessarily immediately want to just reject it or to close our mind to it, but instead to be open and, again, to begin asking questions. If someone makes a claim about something, then we can begin to ask, well, is this something that I can verify for myself? And how can I verify it for myself? And certain things might be very easy, and then other things might be more tricky. I know from looking at the scientific literature and even my own experiences with certain yogic techniques, there are certain techniques that I can do where I don't necessarily feel so different after using the technique. And yet, the scientific research tells us that all these physiological processes are changing within. Now, what's interesting about that is sometimes studies which are general, right? They study many people and they tend to say that, well, in general, this is what happens when we do this technique. That may not apply individually sometimes. So it could be the case that certain people are non-responders to certain yoga techniques, just like medicine. So in any study that's done, there are always people called non-responders. And non-responders are people who did not respond to the intervention in the way that most did. And in fact, sometimes they might even have the opposite effect. So, for instance, you might have in a study that is studying a headache remedy, there might be certain individuals for whom the remedy had no effect, and then there may even be individuals for whom the remedy made their headache worse. But in general, from a scientific perspective, as long as more than 50% of the people had a positive response, then generally they're going to say that, well, this will have a, this positive effect on most people. And you've seen with drugs that you've taken, all the side effects, possible side effects and things that could happen. So they learn those things from these studies. Certain people had those types of effects. So that's where they got that list from. So I just want to point that out, that it is possible that there can be a technique or something, and for whatever reason, you are a non-responder. If that's the case, then I recommend going to your teacher and telling them your experience. And usually they will have a little more experience or knowledge, hopefully, and then they can help guide you in what to do. They may say, well, actually, even though you're not feeling anything, it doesn't mean the technique isn't working. Or they might say, oh, okay, let's try a different technique. So again, it really just depends on the particular circumstances of your situation. So curiosity, coming back to our main topic, taking a technique, being given a technique, applying it. My hope is that you will not have to go on faith very long. That even though a certain technique may not bowl you over, or you may not immediately feel the results, my hope is that the mix, the stew of techniques that I hopefully have on offer as a teacher, and this is if you're taking personally with me. I know some of you may be online and you've never studied with me personally, but my hope as a teacher, and to the people that I share techniques with, is that they will see the efficacy for themselves. They will see that the techniques work. Again, sometimes they can be not so powerful on their own as a standalone, but hopefully overall, the sort of stew or soup of different techniques that when applied together, we feel that we are being uplifted. So then we don't need faith anymore. At first, yes, we might need faith, we might need to trust, but then we are satisfied because we see for ourselves what's going on. Now, where that applies to curiosity is again, so many of us are taking much of our experience on the most superficial level and based on what we think we know. I once said to a class that I was teaching that we suffer because of what we believe that we know, what we think we know, what we think is a fact, what we think is true. And so curiosity is really our willingness to question those things, to go beyond that surface. And so, for instance, if you are raised in certain traditions, you might believe in heaven. And you may have been told that if you do X, Y, Z, you will go to heaven. And someone might even point to a scripture or a book and say, look, it says here in the book. Or they might say, well, this is, you know, God told me, or whatever it might be. And as great as our preachers or teachers or gurus or whoever it might be, I'm not really sure that it's a good idea for us as a spiritual seeker, as someone on this path, to abdicate our knowledge that much to somebody else. I get it. Many of these teachers are extremely charismatic. They are otherworldly in their presence. You just feel so much, and there can be just a desire to just take what they say at face value. But especially these statements that are more esoteric, I don't even know if esoteric is the right word, more fantastical, that are talking about things like reincarnation, about heaven, about past lives. These statements we may want to be a little more hesitant about just accepting. And again, this is where curiosity can come in, to begin to ask questions, to begin to dig deeper. And when I say ask questions, I'm not really saying ask questions of your guru or your teacher. I'm saying go within. That's really where the question asking should be happening. In terms of this talk, of what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ask your teachers questions ever. Definitely you should for certain things. But if someone is talking about, you know, a certain thing, oh, if you do this, you're going to go to hell. Well, that is a pretty powerful statement. And again, I don't think you've been to hell. I haven't. If it's a place that we're talking about. Again, different people might define hell in different ways. I have kind of my own definition that I might use if I use that word, but it's not a place, and it's not a place that you go. For me, it's a state of mind, but if someone is talking about a place that you go after you die, well, how do you verify that? How do you know if that's true or not? And again, we can point to a scripture and say, well, it says here in the scripture. How do we know the scripture is right? Really, how do we know? Other than I was born into this tradition, or I was at a low point in my life and somebody gave me this scripture and I felt so much better. How do we really know that everything that is being said and purported in this is accurate or true? Maybe some things are true and some things aren't. Some things are right and some things aren't. Like a lot of things in life, right? Most people like to consider themselves good people, but they may also have done some bad things, right? So very few things in life are all good, all bad, all right, all wrong. Perhaps it's the case that these traditions, like most things in this realm, are not perfect. And some of the teachings are accurate, useful, helpful, and others are not accurate, not helpful, not useful, actually create problems for us, okay? How do we know? So this is, again, the point of what I'm talking about. Being curious, asking questions. And again, these questions are to be asked inwardly. It is an inward curiosity, an inward searching. Going inside, being still, and knowing. So I think some of you who have been with me for a while know that one of my favorite lines from the Bible is, "Be still and know I am God." But I often tweak it and just say, "Be still and know." Okay, or you could say, "Be still and know I am," but even "be still and know," I think, is very, very powerful. And I'm sharing this with you today because I was doing this earlier today. I had a situation that was making me uncomfortable. And that uncomfortable feeling was driving a certain kind of thought pattern in my mind and certain kind of behavior. It was making me want to behave in a certain way. And so what I did is put everything aside. And this is what is so challenging in modern life, is many of us have created lives where we just cannot stop. There really is no time for us to be still and know. This is why meditation can be so important for us. Taking some time every day to be still and to know. But thankfully, for me, my life has evolved to the point where, at least for now, I very often have some time to be still and to really feel what I'm feeling and to ask those questions. Now, I'll say this, that it's not that answers always come back or that they always come back in a verbal way, or an intellectual way is probably a better way to say it. It's not like when I do that, I always end up with an intellectual understanding. Rather, the curiosity of being willing to open up to something, and I think that's really the key, is the openness. When we're curious, we don't already know the answer, or we don't already know, right? Curiosity, for me, in its purest form, is mental, emotional openness, a willingness to see something that perhaps we had missed or something we didn't know. So for me today, again, I'm trying to share this particular experience that inspired this talk. I made myself comfortable, I got still, and I met the feeling, the uncomfortable feeling that was driving the thoughts and driving the behavior. And I just held it, and I was with it. And I wasn't trying to change it, because again, if we're curious about something, we're in a state of not really knowing. And it's usually only when we think we know something that we're trying to change the thing, because we've already then decided, well, I don't like that thing as it is, I need it to change. But this is, again, where curiosity can be really one of the most powerful tools that you have. Is you're like, well, what is this? Now, I will clarify that on a surface level, I knew exactly what was going on, right? This was a situation that made me uncomfortable. It made sense why it would make me. It wasn't like some great mystery. It was a pretty obvious thing of why it would lead to discomfort or make me uncomfortable. But what I did is I didn't accept that explanation as the final word, and that, oh, it's because of X that I feel Y. And this is, again, where we want to start deconstructing things a little bit. Oh, it's because my boss talked about layoffs that I feel bad. It's because I was dumped that I'm sad. It was because of whatever. Now, I'm not saying there is no relationship there. Those things most assuredly are triggers. But the interesting thing that we can observe is that some people can have the same situation and they don't have the same feeling or reaction as a result. Even you personally possibly have had the same situation happen where you did not react in the same way. So this is where the cause-effect relationship starts to break down, okay? Because it's not necessarily the case that every time we are in the situation we feel this way, or that everyone in the situation feels the same way that I do. If it were truly causal, then there would be that one-to-one relationship. Cause and effect, cause and effect. But what we don't see is a lot of the things that cause us to suffer and to feel emotional discomfort and to drive, again, neurotic thoughts, fearful thoughts. It's not a clear cause and effect. Yes, getting fired, getting dumped, having an uncomfortable exchange with someone, these can be triggers, but they do not have to result in suffering or emotional discomfort, okay? So again, we need to break that down. Oh, someone treated me poorly. Okay, people treat people poorly all the time, and we don't always have to suffer or get upset or be traumatized by those things. So this is where, again, the curiosity beginning to slow down and say, my mind is telling me because of this, I feel this way. Begin to investigate that. That's really where you want to start. And again, the best advice I can give you, be still. Be still. Go into the body sensations. This is where we suffer, is in these bodies. This is so vital. I was talking in a yoga class I was teaching yesterday about this, about embodiment and the importance of embodiment, the importance of being present to the sensations we're feeling in our body, being present to our emotions, being present to the thoughts and ideas that we are having. So, so, so important. So being present to these things, being open to them, willing to feel them, willing to investigate, willing to sort of pick them up and turn them around, right, and investigate all the angles of something rather than just accepting, because this person did this, that is why I'm suffering. Because of this situation, that is why I'm upset. If I could resolve this situation, I wouldn't be upset anymore. That very well may be true, but as I've said, anyone who is really interested in spirituality and spiritual solutions has to be willing to go further than that and deeper than that. After all, that is what spirituality is about. As I've said in the past, we don't need a spiritual teacher to tell us the conventional view. If you come to me and you say, hey, somebody broke my heart and so I'm suffering, and I simply say, well, that sucks. Yeah, you're just going to suffer because your heart's broken. Sorry. That's not telling you anything new. I'm just reaffirming your conventional viewpoint. There's nothing spiritual about that. Oh, I lost my job. That's why I'm suffering. Oh, yeah, that sucks. It sucks when you lose your job. End of story, right? That's not a spiritual viewpoint. Spirituality is about questioning the standard narrative, that's all that there is to it, that's all to be seen, that's all to be learned, and that we need to manipulate the physical in order to shift or change how we feel inwardly. Okay, so spirituality is about doing the inner work, and according to spirituality and to manifestation, basically doing the inner work will shift the outer. That it's the opposite of how our ego wants to approach the problem. Our ego wants to manipulate people, situations, and change the outside so we can feel better inside. I gave a talk a little while ago on this channel about the easy way versus the hard way. This was very much related with what I'm talking about now. The easy way is actually to go inside and work on yourself. Find the joy, the peace, the happiness, the fulfillment, the contentment within you. And then you don't have to worry about what's going on outside. Ironically, in my experiences, when you do that, the outside confirms that. And that's exactly what manifestation claims. Okay? The hard way from this point of view is to actually try and manipulate the entire world, because it's all interrelated, right? Can you really control everything? Can you control who's president? Can you control what a country across the world is going to do, whether they're going to attack us or not? Can you control what other religions, with people with other beliefs, what they're going to do? If you care about the planet, can you control whether someone's going to litter or not? You can try. You can try. But you will not succeed. That is a guarantee. No one ever has. Okay, this world is much too complex. Even you can be an emperor and have a lot of control. You still don't control everything. Okay, and it seems to me that a lot of people who have a lot of control and power are more miserable than an average person. So I'm not sure that any amount of control is necessarily going to lead to peace of mind, happiness, well-being. Okay? You're welcome to try. You know, it's not my job to tell you what to do. I'm just sharing my experience and what I've gleaned from these traditions that I've studied. So the easy way is to work on ourselves. When you change yourself, you change your perception of the world, and the world changes as a result. So again, returning to the topic of today's talk, curiosity is so important when it comes to this. Being willing to question our standard narrative about why we feel the way we feel, what is happening in our lives. Eckhart Tolle talks about the story of me. I love that. The story of me. What is the story you're telling yourself about yourself? I am this age. I've accomplished these things. I am kind. I am nice. I am smart. I am pretty. I am whatever it is, right? A mix of good and bad, all these different things. From the spiritual perspective, you are none of those things, not in an ultimate sense. And so again, spirituality is really about that which is transcendent, that which is eternal, that which is not bound by time and space, getting in touch with that. And all these shadows, all the movement on the surface, all the beliefs that I do not question, all the emotions that I just take at their surface, these are missed opportunities for me to dive deeper and to connect with that part of myself that is truly transcendent. So again, curiosity, such a gift, and it is a really important tool. And I encourage you, if you are not naturally curious, I think this is something that you can cultivate. You can slow down again. You can do this as part of your meditation, perhaps, instead of just accepting something at face value. I'm sad because of X or Y. Again, that's a story. It's a type of story. It's a theory, you could say, about cause and effect, a relationship, cause and effect. And again, I'm not even saying that there isn't truth to it or some truth to it. But let's investigate that. Let's look deeper. Let's really see. And even something like sadness, do we really know what sadness is? A lot of these human emotions, we simply, quote unquote, know them when we feel them, or we know them when we see them. But again, we haven't really seen or felt these in a very long time. Most of us, the mind just comes in so quickly and labels something, and then we're immediately trying to avoid it and get away from it. And we do this in many ways. We might use alcohol, we might use drugs, we might use gossip, we might binge watch television, we might use food, we might use exercise, we might even use spirituality to try and avoid feeling, okay? To try and avoid being really present with something. So curiosity helps us be present because we're putting aside, again, the labels, what we think we know about something, right? I think I know what sadness is, but do I really? When was the last time I really stopped and completely allowed myself to feel sad without any kind of resistance, without wishing it weren't so, without trying to push it away? And this is true of so many emotions and experiences. So I hope that this helps you. Again, this is just something I was experiencing today, and I thought I would share with you while it was very fresh in my mind. That curiosity is really such a powerful tool. And I think it's something that anyone can cultivate. I think many children are just naturally curious, and then we're told answers by those around us, or maybe we're even told to stop asking questions. And so eventually we learn to just sort of take things at a surface level. But if you are interested in spirituality, and if you're watching this, you are, especially if you're at the end of this video, then I really encourage you to bring that curiosity into your life and to, again, ask questions inward, deeper, feel deeper into your experiences. Open your heart and your mind to the mundane things that you think you know, like sadness, anger, frustration. Question the cause and effect relationship, right? This person did this, therefore I'm mad. This person did this, therefore I'm sad. Whatever it is, begin to investigate those things. And I think you will find it's a very rich ground. There's a lot there for you to mine and to use for your personal development. All right, everyone, I hope this was helpful. Please reach out with any questions. Again, thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, and thanks for all my patrons on Patreon. Until next time, namaste, and have a great, beautiful day.